This is The Spot, a BYU-Idaho radio production where we talk about what you're talking about at BYU-Idaho. Today's hosts are me, McKenna Lovelace,
John Villarreal,
Celeste Simmons,
and special guest,
Blake Michael.
The views and opinions of this podcast are not that of BYU-Idaho Radio or the university and are solely the opinions of the hosts. This episode will be fun because I think a lot of people, when they move to Rexburg, they're like, there is nothing to do here. But we're going to be talking about fun things to do in Rexburg because actually there's a ton to do. So I was thinking we could kind of go through like cheap or free things to do, and then also like the more expensive if you want to splurge a little and do some fun stuff. So
I mean, cheap things is like walk in the park, sports, BYUI activities that are, $3, $5 for game nights, dance nights, stuff like that. Those are definitely cheap things. Also, if you have friends, the times are never boring, right?
Fair.
That's true. But maybe before we jump in to the things to do, we should talk to our guest a little bit. Tell us about yourself, kind of where you're from and how long you've lived in Rexburg.
So actually, any longtime listeners of The Spot might potentially recognize me from my time being host a couple years ago. So my name's Blake Michael. I've been an employee for the radio station for the last 3 years, I think. Anyway, but yeah, currently I'm doing one of our news shows weekdays every weekday, which go figure. And I don't know, I've been around for a while, and this is my last semester, so I definitely know Rexburg pretty well as well.
Yeah, you've kind of discovered the things that there are to do.
Yeah,
so.
And doing the internship, I've definitely gotten to know the community a little bit better. But of course, you've definitely had that experience as well, Celeste.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely get to know people in the community because you're just like a student on the campus and it's kind of like your world, but it's cool to step out and, meet the president of whatever community event or stuff like that, and you learn a lot. So yeah, there's a lot to do in Rexburg.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment because when I was in BYU Scroll, you kind of branch out to the community sometimes, but even then I also worked for an online news journal website called the Rexburg Commons, and they would have spreadsheets of this new business is opening up, this is happening, and all these different lives of different people that were making businesses or activities or events in the community for whether nonprofit or just for entertainment businesses for students and stuff like that. And you learn about that, and it's it's interesting. I never knew about that, and you're writing about it.
Yeah, that's true. It's good that there are so many opportunities in Rexburg and through the school that we can branch out and find out what's happening in not just Rexburg, but kind of surrounding cities. There's a lot to do. So let's go into cheap things to do or free things to do in Rexburg. John started saying a few. Some that I thought of are the civil defense caves over in the dunes, which I totally forgot about until thinking about this episode. I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't been there in years. There's a cave and it's free.
The dune has caves? I've been to the dunes. I've never seen any caves though.
I can't remember how to get to it exactly.
See, I've never actually managed to make it out there because the one time I did try to make it out to the civil defense caves was in the dead of winter.
Oh yeah,
and we were
closed.
Oh yeah, let's try and do that. And then we started to drive out that way, and then we just got stuck for 3 hours.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
You get stuck in snow?
Yeah, it was kind of rough.
Because they actually do close the road up to a certain point. You can drive so far and then it's we're closed until May or March. I don't know.
And we were starting to go off road from that point, and it did not work out.
Right. That in it of itself was a cheap, fun experience. Right? With the friends.
Yeah.
But the dunes is fun because if you go out there, there's not light pollution, so you can see stars really well.
Yeah.
I know there was what are they called? The Northern Lights were visible.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if I heard of anyone seeing them in Rexburg, but I know Utah saw them.
I know it was a thing, but I know my wife and I had already fallen asleep.
Yeah,
so
I know. And it was kind of cloudy here. I wanted to, but
another thing is when I'm at the dunes, just making bonfires with friends, you this may not be expensive, but if you have a buddy that has one of those dune buggies or one of those, carts, you always see people just going up and down the sand mountains, just the sand hills, and just ripping it up. And I was like, oh, that's fun.
So for all of you who casually have dune buggies, that's an
Yeah.
option.
Another thing I've done in the dunes that's cheap is you go to the ORC on campus and you rent sandboards.
Oh, what?
And so you like kind of surf down the dunes.
Oh my
it's really
gosh,
fun.
I'm
I think
gonna
it's
do
like
that.
$3 or something to rent them.
The ORC is great because in the winter too, you can rent sleds and they have different types of sleds and it's super cheap. And then you can take them out to the dunes.
We've been snowshoeing.
Yeah,
out there.
snowshoeing.
I remember like for the ORC, like we went camping at the Palisades. I don't know if you've ever been there. They have like the lakes and then upper lakes. It's a little hike. I don't know how long it is, but I was really fat at the time. I still am, but I went with one of my very athletic friends and he would be like, oh, it's just 5 more minutes. And 5 more minutes was like 30 minutes. And he would say that every time. I'd keep pestering him like, Roman, how long? How much longer? How much longer? And then we finally made it to the checkpoint.
No, actually, a couple Memorial Days ago, I actually went with a group of friends out to, I want to think it's called Bear Lake. No.
Oh, yeah.
What was that? No, wait. Oh my gosh.
I think it is Bear Lake.
Yeah.
Bear Lake is like partly in Idaho, partly in Utah.
Yeah.
Probably.
Possibly. I don't recall.
It's really
it.
close.
Yeah.
Just a couple hours.
Yeah. And I think we wound up just kind of like taking like a big old hike and like brought like a canoe with us, which got a bit more tiring on the way up because it's quite a bit of downhill. And so.
So on the way back is a little.
No, wait. No. Not Bear Lake. Sorry. Paxada Lake. That's what it was called.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was cool, but also like very tiring. We had like a friend who like came all the way from Indiana for some reason. Like we didn't invite him; he just kind of showed. And like for a bit of it, it was kind of like a, "Why are you out here, buddy?"
Yeah.
But then like toward the second half of that hike, he came in very handy, and so it was just like, although we were like, "I don't know how to talk to you. We haven't had conversations since like I was very young." But I don't know.
Right.
That is funny.
Sounds like me, like the friend that just inserts himself into every group. So I think it's also like really fun to like organize yourselves. Like my friends and I have a Discord channel with subsections of like shooting, hiking, movies, dancing, random activities. And so like we're all there, and so we all inform each other, and we all also put like notifications on what we want to be notified. Like, oh, I'd like this. I don't care about that, And it's like, and so it's great because we're always amassing more people, especially like, strays. Like, yeah, that come here to Rexburg and they're like, oh, I just came here from Washington, not going to school, just, trying to make friends. And so we're like, oh, come into the fold, brother.
Yeah, I've heard of people coming to Rexburg and like they don't go to school here. They might have just found a job here. And so I feel like it is a lot harder to know what's happening and make friends because you're not seeing like all the campus events happening and all that. So it's good to bring in the strays, like you said. They're not strays in our hearts. But
nah, we love them.
That brings up a point. Campus has a ton of super cheap things to do. Like everything's always like just a couple bucks. So there's a few students that John met. And so I have a couple sound bites of things that they like to do on campus. So see if any of you guys have done them too.
What are some fun things to do in Rexburg?
Well, I've enjoyed going to like the music theater and a lot of the plays they do here. Last semester they did the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and that was a beautiful piece. I definitely am looking forward to doing it again this semester.
I didn't get to see Hunchback of Notre Dame, but I heard so many good things. Like everyone was like, that was amazing, like the best production.
Well, yeah, the director for that show is actually the owner of the Playmill Theater. So,
oh, wow.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
well, that
wow.
makes sense why it turned out so good.
Is it based off of like the Disney, or is it a different adaptation? Or?
So it's a little bit of both. Like it has like some songs from like the Disney movie, but then it also like is a little bit more based off of like the original
real
Victor Hugo novel. So
dark Victor Hugo novel.
yeah. No, it's like kind of rough, but also it was like really good.
Yeah, not quite Disney,
But yeah, no, that's a good point. The theater productions here are like $3 for students, $6 if you're just a community member. But the point
But
remains,
still, yeah.
that's like a really good deal. And so I went with I don't know, my wife and I went to see that show twice, and like for 2 times of seeing it for like both of us was like $12 altogether. So I mean, like
That's not bad at all for like theater production.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
can get expensive if you go to like the really professional.
It's true. And there are some productions here on campus that are a little more, like for instance, like Ryan Hamilton came last semester, and I think that one was like
Probably more like
$12,
12,
I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or like BYU-Idaho Christmas is more like 12, I think, maybe even 20 at that
Right.
point. Because it's like they're bringing a special guest that's like,
They're known in the
paid.
Broadway
yeah.
musical theater world. Like they're like composers or big names. Because I knew they had like a Hamilton star, the guy that played
Like Anthony Ramos? Or?
no, I think it's no, not Anthony Ramos. That's it was the guy that played the antagonist against Hamilton.
Oh,
Burr,
really?
Aaron Burr, I think, a while back, maybe like a year ago or 2 years ago. And they had him, and he was talking about like acting, I think, and music and
That's so
theater
cool.
performance. It was in like he was giving like a speech
Like a
and like his
workshop.
a workshop, and so a lot of theater people went and. But it was about like $10-12. But I mean, it's valuable information. This guy is he's in movies now, and his name is getting up there after Hamilton. He just blew up.
No, he's
Yeah.
incredible.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
But
no, sorry.
No. But I think going back to the musical theater ones, like there's so much like performances that are put on by the school. Recently, they had the Herederos, the mariachi.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a really great mariachi. I wasn't able to go see it because of work, but I mean, it was only like $10, I think, and that's really cheap for a, the type of mariachi that has, like they had awards to their names or titles, and so it's really good to see that and be able to showcase just different type of music, different cultures, whether and it's really cool. I mean, it's super cheap too.
Yeah. No, and if you're ever interested in like seeing like a lot of I don't know, music productions, so I mean, there's like the center stage stuff, there is the BYU-Idaho theater department, and then there's also the music department.
Yeah.
And so depending on how much you actually want to pay, like there's really good concerts that are put on that you can pay for. Like personally, I'm a big fan of like the jazz combos.
Yeah.
They are so cool. But yeah. Yeah, no, those are great. But then, if you happen to pay attention, and now these ones are a little bit harder to like figure out the schedule for. You actually need to like go by the music office and look at the calendar. But then there's ones that like are basically just recitals for people, and you can just go for free.
For free. Like opera. Like I used to be me and Blake actually used to be music majors together. And so we'd have different recitals we had to attend. They were always free. It was really fun, like being able to just hear so many different musicians perform and get practice in front of people. So there's free things to do. There's cheap things to do.
No, the composition recitals I always thought were really interesting.
Oh, I don't think I ever went to one of those.
Yeah.
So students would compose something and then perform it.
Yeah, for anybody who
cool.
was like a composition major. And sometimes they get a little bit avant-garde, but also like I feel like that's kind of part of the fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
man.
I'm a little bit rusty with my music theory. I did like guitar, like in middle school through high school. But
Sure.
It's like, what do you think? Well, the staccato and the tempo and you need a rest here. And
Yeah, all those terms. I think I'm a little rusty too. I studied it and then stopped, and so you lose a lot. But yes, cheap things. There's let's listen to one more soundbite of something students like to do on campus.
Okay.
Are there any fun things to do around Rexburg that you know of?
I think that one of the few things I know is like sports. There's a lot of stuff here and that not many people know about. Like for example, the recreational sports here in BYU-I, we have a lot of like, I work for that department, so it's for example, we have jiu-jitsu. Nobody knew that we had jiu-jitsu. We also have volleyball, we have basketball. There's also football going on and soccer. And there's a bunch of stuff to do when it comes to sports, but if you're lazy, like you're done. You
Thank you.
I like how she said, if you're lazy, you're done. But it's true. There are all the different like intramural sports that you can sign up for. And it's
true.
only, I think, a couple bucks to be part of that. And
it's really fun just kind of like going
Yeah.
through like the lists of like all the different teams that are involved, because like they all come up with their own team names.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least that was true of volleyball. I had a friend who was in one of the volleyball intramural leagues, and I think her group was called the A team, but it was like in quotes EH because they were all Canadians.
oh, that's funny. Yeah. I know my fiance does the soccer and futsal intramurals sometimes. And I know that they sometimes use like little puns kind of referencing.
Play on words.
Yeah, like professional players and stuff. I can't remember what their team name was, but I didn't understand it because I'm new at the soccer.
Oh, sure.
You mean
stuff,
football?
Football, yes.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I think if I ever were to go into those intramural sports, at least for football wise or basketball, I'd be the water boy.
Yeah, me too.
That'd be my most valuable position.
Yeah, the good thing about intramurals, because I used to do them a lot like my freshman year, and they actually you have to have a certain number of girls on the
Yeah.
field, because sometimes the boys will like dominate it and be like, you're not good enough or whatever,
Yeah.
which is kind of true sometimes because I was not good at soccer, but I had to get playing time.
Right.
So it was fun to just like play and kick the ball around, and I was like, sorry if I didn't
Yeah.
play well, but
I think the girls are like help. I think the words pacify the guys, like violent
yes.
rage in
Yeah, kind of
sports.
bring
Oh, there
down
were
the-
Because
so
it was
many
just guys
fights.
like,
Yeah.
oh, you're going down, and then they just. It's a good way. It's a good outlet to get. It's a healthy way to get out violence.
Sports.
Yeah, there were a lot of fights, and the refs would be like throwing red cards and
Yeah,
stuff, and I was
yeah.
like, we're
No
BYU-Idaho,
kidding.
like let's
I
be
know.
nice.
Calm down. This is an intramural.
Please,
Yeah.
guys, President Nelson said to be peacemakers.
Yeah.
Exactly. I did do a basketball intramural my freshman year, and I was so excited, but also like terrified because I love basketball, but I'd much rather play with just girls because I'm so small that I felt like the guys were so tall. I mean, like basketball playing guys are like 6 foot or taller.
Yeah.
And so I really couldn't guard them at all. I was like just a body on the court because they needed a certain number of girls, but it was still fun experience. Yeah, well, let's talk about more expensive things to do because when I think of more expensive, I think of the ice palaces in the wintertime. It's like $20 or something, maybe a little more, but they're so pretty. I don't know if you guys have been to those, but
Is that like a palace made out of ice?
yeah, it literally
Yeah,
is.
literally.
Like I don't know, people build and like sculpt this ice palace and you can walk through it and they put like lights through it.
Do they have a little like you can get like drinks and they'll put ice in the drinks and
They probably have hot chocolate actually, or you
Yeah,
probably
'cause
freeze.
I can't imagine like it's like, oh yeah, we're selling ices in the middle of this
Yeah.
thing. 'Cause it's just like, oh yes, here to cool off. I don't.
Right. And I think they have like a fire show, like a guy juggling torches and
Oh,
stuff.
fun.
Yeah,
in
when
the ice
I
palace.
went, they had the fire torch guy. That was super cool. And then we paid a little bit extra to go on like a sleigh ride.
yeah.
And it takes you to the cabin, and there's like hot chocolate
Oh,
and sledding. It's really
cute.
cool. It's like hidden.
Yeah.
You feel like you're in Frozen or something.
Aw. I think they do have Elsa visit sometimes. So.
No, makes sense.
So that's a fun one. Can you guys think of other things that you can do around here?
Well, so it's not on the expensive side, but actually one of my favorite places that I've been getting to know a little bit more recently. I actually live nearby this game store called Holiday Fun and Games.
Yeah.
And they're basically, so I mean, they're a board game place, but what's actually really cool is that if you ever are like, well, I mean, like I want to potentially get a game, but I also like, I don't know if I necessarily like want to buy it. You can try it there in the store, like absolutely for free. And if you decide that like you really like a particular game and you want to bring it home, but you're also not totally sure on like buying it, you just like want to bring it home like for the weekend, just like for some friends to come over or whatever, you can do that for like $5 and it's like a really good deal. And my wife and I have definitely been making use of that lately.
Yeah. That would be so cool. And I've seen that recently. My fiance's like, we should go to that little like fun and game store. It looks cool. We should check it out. We weren't sure if it was like board games or video games or what it was, but
So 4th of July is coming up.
True.
And I don't want to encourage any criminal activity, but
No.
if you get a lot of fireworks from places that maybe aren't from America, and they don't have certain, limits, and you go somewhere out in the boonies with some boys, you have yourself a fun time.
do they allow fireworks?
And girls.
in
Boys
Rexburg?
and
Yeah,
girls.
Boys and girls, yeah.
Well, I was gonna say like I love the idea of like just like specifically boys because like otherwise like as like the women are actually like intelligent are like, hey,
We'll talk some
maybe-
sense
into
maybe
you
guys.
don't do that.
Maybe don't do that.
No,
Yeah.
look, if anything happens, it's all the boys' fault, and the girls are free of blame, just like Moses and the golden calf.
Oh,
We'll take the
heavens.
blame.
No, but there is the 4th of July parade, which happens every year. Which
That's
is
so
something to do.
cute. Yeah, I love that parade.
I'm so excited. I've never been here for a spring semester. So like,
Yeah.
there's all these things I didn't know about that are
Another
happening.
thing the rodeo, I think, has come or will be coming to
Rodeo.
town.
I think there was the first one,
Yeah.
like the very first day of farmers market.
It is super fun.
okay.
I went to a couple times because I did a story on a vendor or something. But they were they were having it like, a couple times a week for several weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to one also. They were doing, I think it was the same time. They were doing like a bike race with a bunch of little kids.
Mm.
And it was really fun to see them race and stuff, because some of the kids, they would fall over on their motorbikes and they'd be too small to help to get them back up. So an adult would come in and put them up again. The referee come up and help them out. Or if they get stuck in like one of the ditches or hills or whatever, these kids are like 5 or 6 sometimes or 7. They're small,
They
but
know
they're
what to do.
yeah, they have grit. Like they're just revving it up and tearing up the racetrack, and it's pretty fun. And the rodeo is super fun too, seeing all the livestock and everything, and being able to see the sports and the people's skills. And I was like, wow, I could never do that. Like half tying and stuff like that. And
Oh, yeah.
it's so fun to just spectate and look.
That's pretty cool. I've only been to one rodeo, and I'd never really experienced any of those events. I'm like, whoa, this is really impressive that they can like so quickly, tie up a calf or whatever they do. There's so many different events. I haven't even seen them all, but
Yeah.
so that'll be cool. That's here now, maybe. But another thing that I've been wondering about is there's a drive-in that I've heard about. I
Yeah,
don't know
the
if it's
Teton.
open yet.
Yeah.
Teton
I
View.
think I don't know if it's open yet, but I've been during past spring semesters,
Okay.
and that's really fun. Sometimes
Yeah.
I have like a double feature, so you can like see 2
Oh,
movies,
fun.
and you end up just like kind of hanging out with your friends,
Yeah.
like eating food and watching the movies. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's a good time.
That's
And you
a-
just tune in with your radio, right?
Yeah.
That's so
Mhm.
cool.
What if your radio's broken though?
Ooh, then-
Condolences.
yeah,
Condolences.
Figure it
you
out.
try to listen to the car next
Get on
year.
my
Yeah.
phone or something. Tune into the radio with my phone.
Yeah, just stream it. Probably.
Yeah. Another thing I like to do around here is climbing and hiking. This
Oh,
is
yeah.
like one of, not like an epicenter of climbing and hiking. Well, for hiking for sure, actually, because of
Mhm.
the Tetons.
Yeah.
And you have Kelly Canyon like 30 minutes away, which is a hidden gem. And
Mhm.
there's a lot to do outdoors. That's why spring semester is my favorite, because there's just so many hikes to do. And then climbing, I mean, it gets expensive because you have to like buy the equipment. But once you have the equipment, you use it all the time.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a more like expensive hobby, but it's worth it because it's like working out and you get to make friends and it's
Mhm.
just like a good time outside. So
Yeah. I think there is a rock climbing gym here
Yeah.
too, which
True.
that's
you
like
can get certain
$50 a month
Yeah.
for like the pass, which pays off because each time you go is like around $15 if you rent the gear.
if you
And
go
so then
a
if you
few
go
times.
more than 3 times, then it pays off.
Yeah.
So
Yes. That reminded me of like my roommate, a super expensive sport and activity would have to be hunting. He's a hunter.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, you have to get all the gear, of course, have the licenses to hunt. And if you're not a resident, sometimes it's more than a regular resident. But, he's got a separate cooler, a freezer, and he brings meat, and then we all cook it, and we all we all benefit. He's like he's the hunter, we're the gatherers.
Yeah.
We season it. We're all we're little Latinos and stuff, and we'll season it, and we'll like
Oh,
make
sure.
recipes
Yeah.
out of it.
But it's like deer meat and
Deer meat, fish,
yeah, fish.
we-
What I wonder with that is if you are a college student who is getting into hunting, like where do you like hang meat? Like I don't.
Oh.
Maybe he has like a storage like outside of like his place or something.
Huh.
Maybe.
I don't
'Cause-
know.
Because he knows like the spots. He's like, oh yeah, this is a good wood spot. This is a good fishing spot. No one touches this spot, and he knows all the markings and everything.
Fishing is one thing. Like hunting is another thing though, because like it's a little bit easier to prepare a fish. To be able to prepare like an entire thing of venison, like that is
Yeah.
quite a lot more work.
They've got to know people, I think. Like
It's turkey season.
locals.
I think it's turkey season.
Is it?
Or it was a
I
week
thought
ago.
like November was because of Thanksgiving, but I don't really know anything about hunting.
or some type of fowl. But he was saying like, yeah, I'm going turkey hunting, and I was like, cool. And then like when he come back from his hunt and he like fell, and I'm like, you broke your bow, like Nephi. Like I would
Yeah.
reference that, like now we're all gonna go hungry. No, I'm just messing. But yeah,
Well, to kind of conclude the episode, I'm curious how Rexburg compares to other places you've lived. Like, do you like Rexburg? How do you guys feel about it?
One thing I really love about Rexburg in comparison to my hometown in Indiana is that it's actually very walkable.
Yeah.
I have a car now, so I don't need to walk everywhere. But the thing is, if you are a college student who does not have a car, true, like you're not going to be able to get out to some places, like you're not going to be able to get out to like the Ice Palace or, a lot of places
Even
quite
Walmart
as easily.
is pretty far.
Yeah. But the thing is, there are things that are, within reachable distance. And it's not like, I throughout the entire time of dating my wife, I did not have a car. And it wasn't until we were actually engaged that we finally did have one.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're doing more stuff that it's like, in Idaho Falls or whatever. But still, there's definitely a lot of options.
I think for like pros and cons or pros differences, I definitely like the cohesiveness of the community. Like it's definitely shared values and morals, of course, because it's majority LDS. But not only that, but it's I think it's really easy to make friends and have a sense of community with strangers because of that those things mentioned. You can, all you have to do is like reach out or go to groups, start, talking this and that. And it's like, of course, more people are extroverted than others and introverted. But I think there's that sense of community that like, you can just sit at someone's table and talk with them, and you can become friends, play some video games together. And it's like go to the park and just play volleyball together. And then you become friends. And then, you have those friends and that community.
Yeah, I'd say that's a hard one because I live near Sacramento. That's where I grew up. And so like 2 hour, like in any direction, and you can be literally anywhere, like a city or a beach or the mountains or wherever. So I miss that aspect of it, but I really, really like living in Rexburg. And it's definitely the people that make it fun because it's people that want to be doing things. So you get creative. And like you said, like you go play volleyball or, if someone has a car, you can drive to the mountains and go hiking or whatever. So I think I definitely have more fun here because I have people that want to have fun with me.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I grew up in St. Louis, but like a suburb. So really the only thing to do with your friends is like go to Chick-fil-A. So I feel like there's so much more to do here, like actual activities. Like I've gained new hobbies like country dancing and even sports because there's just more opportunity for it here. And like Celeste was saying, like you meet so many people your age. They're all just compact in one place. So I really like Rexburg too. The winter was tough, but everything else has been great.
Winter is coming again.
I know. Let's not think about it. You've been listening to The Spot, a production of BYU-Idaho Radio. Today's hosts were me, McKenna Lovelace,
John Villarreal,
Celeste Simmons,
and special guest,
Blake Michael.
The views and opinions of this podcast are not that of BYU-Idaho Radio or the university and are solely the opinions of the hosts. This episode was edited by John Villarreal. Producers were the hosts with supervision by Brandon Isle. Our theme music is Finding Happiness by DJ Quads and The Perpetual Ticking of Time by Artificial Music. To listen to more episodes of The Spot, like and follow us on social media or visit our website byui.edu/radio and click podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to the BYU-Idaho Radio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts. And also leave a review of the show and leave a comment on what we should talk about next.